Our first example is very basic. We're going to multiply two radical expressions. So we're going to multiply the square root of 2 times the square root of 3. And just to review what you learned in Algebra 1, we can multiply these both under the radical symbol. So the square root of 2 times the square root of 3 becomes the square root of 2 times 3. And that equals the square root of 6. If we could simplify this, we would, but we can't, so that's our final answer. All right, in our next example, we are still just multiplying two radical expressions. Now, you could simplify the square root of 8 first. However, it's sometimes just as easy to multiply both of the radicands. So just like our last example, we can multiply 8 and 2 under the radical. And when we multiply those, we get 16. And what makes this example different is this is now something that we can simplify. So in this case, we know the square root of 16 is 4. And if you really want to be a critical thinker algebraically, we actually know the square root of 16 is both positive and negative 4. And we could have said that about our last example as well. Now this example is more of what you're going to encounter in this unit, where we are multiplying an expression that has a number times a radical times another radical. And often in our special right triangles, we'll see that we are multiplying the square root of 3 times itself. So just remember that when we take the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, that's the same as saying the square root of 3 squared. And taking the square root and using the exponent of 2, those are inverse operations. You learned in Algebra 1 that the square root of 3 is the same as 3 to the 1/2 power. And we know when we square something, we're taking that to the second power. And you learned that you can multiply your exponents when you have a power of a power, and this becomes 3 to the power of 1, because 1/2 times 2 is 1. So I certainly don't show my work this way. That's a lot of algebra. But what you really need to know is that when we multiply the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, another way of thinking about that is we get the square root of 9, which is the number 3. So going back to our example, if I'm multiplying 2 root 3 times the square root of 3, I'm going to multiply just the radical expressions. So I get 2 times the square root of 9, which becomes 2 times 3, because the square root of 9 is 3. And then I'm going to simplify that and get 6.